All right, everybody, welcome back to the Adventure RX podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Nick Anderson, physical therapist, semi-endurance athlete by trade, skier, kayaker. Very excited to have on my guest today. Kristen is a endurance athlete, marathon, ultramarathon, competitive runner. Also has been in the wellness industry for 10 plus years. It's been my pleasure to call Kristen a friend the last few years, and very excited for this conversation today, as everyone that runs these ultra distances are very interesting in my opinion, and I would love to get into it some more. So Kristen, thank you for your time today. And
Thanks for
what do you
having
got
me.
going on? What do you got going on this weekend?
This weekend, just relaxing. Got a few runs lined up. Gonna meet my best friend's baby. She just had a baby. So just some good time running, seeing friends, and seeing family.
Awesome. That sounds like a great Cleveland weekend. You just ran the Burning River Ultra in Cleveland. It's probably the premier event for trail running in Cleveland, put on by Western Reserve Racing. I was an aide captain volunteer. It was a very hot day. It was very humid. How'd you do, and how was that experience? Tell us a little more about that race.
Yeah, that was a pretty interesting experience for sure. Because the race itself, as you know, and some people listening may know, is it's a 100-mile race, so 50 miles out and 50 miles back. So for the 50-mile runners, you can choose the front half or the back
Mm-hmm.
half. And I wanted to do the front half, but the night portion is definitely something out of my comfort zone. So I chose the back half. And so my race didn't start until 4 p.m. And
Okay.
so I think that the runners during the day got some aggressive sun and heat. I definitely experienced the humidity and the heat, but one thing I was lucky for was that each hour the temperature was going down, you know? So the
Yeah.
difficulty for me was definitely the humidity and the storming, because it was probably storming for you guys in the morning.
Yeah, it was when I got there around 5:30 a.m. It was rainy and stormy. For those that don't know, the race went off. The first leg went off at 2 a.m. and I think the marathoners went off at 7. I want to say 7
Yeah.
a.m. And it was a very wet and humid day. People were dropping like flies we were at mile 22, just trying to keep everyone patched together with food and water.
Yep.
So it was fun.
Yeah, the
It was fun.
humidity was tough. That's for sure.
As you've gotten into this longer distance running, it's been fun to see your progress over the last few years. At what point did you say, "Hey, I want to do an ultra"? Was it like, "Hey, I've done a couple marathons, and what's next?" Like,
Hmm.
what was that process like for you?
Yeah, so it's kind of been a long time in the making, because I started running when I was in seventh grade. I ran my first half marathon in middle school. And then I kind of always had this mindset that I'm only running a half marathon, like anything further is crazy. And then I did cross country and really excelled at that in high school. And then after, I changed some fitness goals and things of that nature, and didn't get back into racing until probably 5 years ago, and or just a couple years ago. And so there was always that thought over my head of I want to hit those times again. And
Yeah.
I want to prove to myself that I'm a better runner now than when I thought I was at my best. And so it was always an idea that I wanted to run a marathon. So
Mhm.
I ran a marathon, and around that time, I was dealing with, a lot of loss and grief, and it was very difficult to navigate. And I had come across this ultra runner. His name's Jeffrey Binney. If anyone knows him, he's super awesome. And I watched his documentary prior to even going through the hardships that I mentioned. And I thought it was a really awesome outlet. He decided to do this race to kind of navigate some grief and the loss of his mother. And so amidst that time, I ran the marathon. I was like, you know what? I need some extra time to myself. I need time to process. So then I ran my first 50K. And it was a journey of self-discovery for sure. you spend a lot of time by yourself, and it's kind of just been an extension of healing for me. So that's kind of where I started getting into ultras. Was I wanted to prove to my younger self that like I can excel again and even be better than I was. But then also that what really drove it was, trying to find some time to heal and process and do some self-discovery along the way. So that's kind of how I got there. And then all of a sudden I'm running a 50 miler. So, but.
No, that's a great story. When you're in those deep miles, are there, obviously it can get very emotional. Is there any like a mantra or a saying or any tips for that? Like how do you get through some of those really deep miles where you're really digging it out?
Yeah. There's I kind of cycle through a few different thoughts that I have during those times.
Okay.
Like one is I can do anything for X amount of time. Like I kind of break it down. I can do anything for 30 minutes. And if I can tackle this 30 minutes, I can do another 30 minutes. So kind of just always reminding myself I'm very capable of handling the amounts of time in front of me, because the reality is I can handle anything for 10 hours even. So that's something I reminded myself. Another thing is, and I'm sure a lot of runners and athletes can relate to this, is, you do have some levels of doubt in yourself at times. So, it's healthy to kind of, do some self-reflection and be humble along the way. And so one thing that does help me navigate those hard moments is like, why not me? Like, why wouldn't I be able to accomplish this? Because I do have those seeds of self-doubt sometimes when it's getting hard, like, how the heck am I going to get through this? But like, why can't I? So that, and then a couple other little things that I do is I don't know of anyone else who does this, but sometimes I'll like, every step I'll spell out a loved one's name or a friend's name and like think about them and wish them well. And it kind of just occupies my brain and distracts me for a little bit. So those are like the three things that I do in the depths of pain.
Yeah, it almost sounds meditative for you.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Yeah, I think breaking that down, we call it like part practice, or you're just making small changes in habits is a good example. I don't know if you've read the book Atomic Habits, but it's like you're saying, okay, maybe for a new runner trying to get into it, maybe it's 5 minutes at a time. Okay, I can do this for 5 minutes, and then maybe the next week it's like, okay, let's do 6 minutes at a time, and so on. But yeah, I think getting started with just like that block where you're saying like 30 minutes at a time. And oftentimes you do the 30 minutes and it's like, well, let's do another 30. Let's do another 30. And you just keep stringing it together.
Yeah. And it kind of, that mindset kind of roots back to, how I got into running is my mom is a huge runner. She's ran marathons, half marathons, everything. And I had to run a mile to try out for volleyball in 7th grade. Nice. And my mom's like, we can do this. And she's helping my twin and I, and it's hard. Like, it was very overwhelming. I remember running just down like a short stretch of the path and being like, what? Like, I have to do that 4 more times. And my mom would always tell us this. And obviously on a trail, you don't see like the green lines and the bike path, like how you do on just a normal path. But my mom would always say like, just one green line at a time. That's all you need to do. So it kind of brings me back to that. And just her reminders that it's just one little bit at a time, and it tacks on, and you'll get there. So,
yeah, I think that's the beautiful thing with endurance sports in general is it's we call it like a capacity sport, right? Like if you practice and do it, you will get better at it. Now, everyone's ceiling might be different with the amount of time you have and genetics and everything else, but like you're saying, starting as a little kid. And you have to like it too. If you hate it, you're obviously not going to enjoy, the endurance sports. But, it's slow starting, but they're great because they're a low barrier for entry to low cost. I mean, you just need shoes.
Exactly.
And you can go. If you don't want to get into cycling or, swimming, you just go swimming. We're in Cleveland. You have the lake, so that'd be easy. What's so we're at the aid station. Do you have any favorite snacks you like at the aid stations? Like we cooked up pancakes. That was pretty fun.
Yeah, I was curious what, like, from your perspective, what were people's heavy hitters in terms of their favorites. But my personal is you will always catch me eating a peanut butter and jelly at an aid
Okay.
station. Like the amount of peanut butter and jellies that
Classic.
I eat during a race is astronomical. And
Yeah.
so it's so funny because like all of my friends and family know this about the peanut. Like I need it. And there was one photo of me taken by the photographer at the Burning River race, and it's literally just like me chowing down
Just
on a peanut butter and
shoveling in a
jelly.
PB&J.
And so peanut butter and jellies are number one, but for the first time at the Burning River race, it was like at night, I'm hitting, like I'm tired, I'm ready to be done, and there was pierogies at the aid station. I was like, whoa,
Oh, the pierogies,
yes.
nice.
So those are second for me.
Yeah, we did. My wife was cooking up the pancakes, and we pretty much sold out. I mean, they were gone by 10 a.m. I
Those would be
mean, it
so
was
good.
yeah, pancakes and syrup. It was fun. With the long distance running, in my opinion, if you have a decent baseline of fitness, you can get away with like half-assing half marathon training or like 10K training without increasing your risk for injury too much. I
Hmm.
think the half is kind of like right on the edge where, if you go into completely untrained, like yeah, you're probably going to injure yourself if you're not used to that distance, or at least you're going to be hurting for a couple weeks. Um, with with marathons or ultras, what is that prep look like, and how do you balance all of that? Because the long runs for marathons are like 20, 21 miles, and that's a couple hours of running, and
Hmm.
people work. We got hobbies, we got family and friends. How do you fit all that in, and what does your prep look like every cycle?
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely something like there's an art to balancing it all. Because one thing that I've told all of my clients over the years and myself is like, this is important and this is a passion, but
Hmm.
your health and your wellness has so many buckets and social, emotional, like those are important too. So you don't want to neglect those you love or neglect your other hobbies. So really try and find a way to balance it into your routine. It can be very difficult, especially when you're hitting your peak for ultra training. For a 50K, you're in the similar realm mileage wise as as marathon training, but once you get past that, you have to do some like back to back long runs. So your
Hmm.
Saturdays and your Sundays are, you're allotting hours on end to that. And so for me, what helps the most is kind of just being diligent with mapping out my schedule and saying like where will this fit, but also where will I have non-negotiable time for like the people I love and what I love to do outside of running. And in my opinion, I think that if you're sacrificing every level of your social life and every level of your well-being to do this, it might
Yeah.
be, you might want to take an extra rest day. I think that it's
Right.
okay if you're hitting a good solid weekly mileage. There's a threshold where like a couple extra miles, is it going to change things? Probably not. And so I like to get my runs done like in the morning before work if I
Hmm.
can. And I know this is I'm privileged to be able to fit it in the morning. Like I don't have kids or things of that nature, but I like to get it done in the morning. So I have like evenings I can allot to family and friends, or just like early on weekend mornings, which can impact what you do on the evenings the night before. But I think the main thing too is finding a support system that supports your plans. Like maybe you're hanging out later in the evening, I mean, earlier in the evening than you maybe once did so that you can get to bed earlier. But really, just my biggest tip to people trying to balance their time with ultra running is being diligent with the schedule, how you would your work schedule, and like finding time where it makes sense. Of course, it's important to be flexible along the way. You may sleep in and you may have to do a run at a time you didn't plan, but really just trying to remember that running is training for a race is cool and fun, but it's not cool and fun if you're sacrificing everything else. So,
Yeah, I think back to like you have to be enjoying it,
yeah.
and if your balance is so far off where it's affecting the rest of your life in a negative way,
Hmm.
especially as you're putting the time in that you need to be able to run the ultra type distances.
Yeah. And my
I mean,
strength training changes too. So like as you know, I love to strength train, and as you know in your
right.
profession and your personal experience as an athlete, you need to do both. Like you shouldn't just run and not strength train at all. Can definitely increase your injury risk there. So
Sure.
you know,
Absolutely.
ideally, I would like to be strength training 4 to 5 days a week. But as I get with more deeper into my training cycle for races or more mileage,
Hmm.
I might just go down to 2 full body days because that's what works.
Yep.
So kind of just like in that regard, seeing where you can pull from would be my biggest tip to someone too. You don't have to always keep it perfectly as it is at every time. Sometimes you have to pull from buckets and allot it where it makes sense.
Yeah, sure. And big shout out to strength training for runners. If you are a runner, you will be a better runner if you strength train. If
Yes.
you are a strength athlete, you will be a better strength athlete if you run. Now,
There we
they're
go.
going to be, maybe you run twice a week and you lift 5 days a week, and then the endurance athlete is the reverse. But oh my gosh, people, if you're a runner, get under a barbell once a week and squat or deadlift or lunge or kettlebells or dumbbells or something, because it drives me nuts when I'll see endurance athletes and they're like, I don't need to strength train my legs because I'm a runner. And I'll say, you need to strengthen your legs because you are a runner. Like
Yep.
literally spit it back at them, just like that. It's funny.
Yeah, and as you would probably argue, I would argue it's more beneficial to skip a run one day to allot for some strength training than it is to just skip strength training altogether.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree because you're getting the cross training,
Yep.
right? Where it's different loads, different systems working in different capacities,
Yeah.
versus the very repetitive breakdown that can happen with obviously longer distance running. Back to like into the longer distances. Do you think running marathons and ultras has changed your relationship with discomfort?
Yeah, for sure. I think that, you know, it's kind of one of those things going into it. Your first time going into like a marathon or really any distance that's kind of feels out of reach for you, it's pretty scary and pretty uncomfortable. And
Mm,
one thing that I find with it is that you have to, accept things as they come. Physical discomfort is temporary. It can teach you a lot about yourself. Obviously, we're talking about just like pushing yourself in a race, not getting injured. If you're in
yeah,
pain, if you're injured,
yeah,
that's
like
a different thing.
soreness, discomfort
Yeah.
versus actually being injured and
hmm
hurt.
And
Right.
so it definitely kind of transfers into my everyday life too, of just uncomfortable situations, whether that be a difficult conversation, maybe in the workplace, or, an uncomfortable conversation in the real world, or maybe a big change. So, like, as you know, I changed jobs this year, or just something that feels uncertain. The
Hmm.
sitting with the discomfort that you feel during a long distance run kind of prepares you for like, okay, I can do this. I can get on the other side. Even though it might be different forms of discomfort, it kind of just
Hmm.
strengthens your resiliency and your ability to know like I can handle hard things and I
Right.
can find peace in those moments where it is difficult because, you know, we are all human. We are all going to go through things that really suck, whether that be, grief or just any kind of discomfort,
Hmm.
change. And so finding ways to find stillness, to find moments of peace and, strength and things that you're capable of in those moments really will get you through. So ultra running definitely teaches me to get uncomfortable and be okay with it.
Yeah, few of the ultra runners that I've met and hang around with a few, and I've had a few on the podcast. Everyone has generally been very calm and very humble. I don't know if that's a certain trait for long distance or endurance athletes in general, but do you think you guys are like wired a little bit differently? Obviously, everyone's a little bit different
Mm-hmm.
personality wise, but there has to be some type of, you got to have a certain personality, right, to
Yeah.
want to be able to do some of these distances.
Yeah. I think, well, for first and foremost, just having that passion for running. Because if you don't love it,
Yeah.
then you're going to have a really terrible time.
You're going to have a terrible
You're
time
going to
running
have a
50
really bad
miles if you hate it.
time. But, I think that it all boils down to just like you said, most ultra runners that you've encountered are humble and, very calm. And I think that as you get more into the sport, everybody you come across just genuinely wants the best for the runners around them, and everybody's doing it for their own personal reason. And when you think about what everyone's showing up, they're showing up for themselves day in and day out. It just makes you just appreciate every runner, and the times don't really matter. It's just like a huge feat to be able to do those things. And the people who are elite athletes in running these races in the first place, like in record times, are amazing. The people who are, the last to cross the finish line are also amazing. So really just, everybody's out there for their own reasons, and remembering that is helps in terms of just appreciating every runner out there and just being humble in the sport in general. But in terms of being wired differently, I think when I used to be like, people who run 50 miles are crazy. And I used to be, people I know probably have that on record of me being like, I would never do such a thing. But I think once you kind of cross that bridge of like the 50K and you do it, you're like, oh, I'm capable of some pretty crazy stuff. And so I think that everybody's capable of being an ultra runner. I think it's more of just kind of that, like being out there for hours on end, just kind of exploring the woods, enjoying that, and also just kind of realizing like anybody can do it. So if you're sitting at home right now and the furthest you've run is a 5K, and you feel like maybe an ultra runner is wired differently, I used to think that too. And I think the most important thing is, if you want to do it or you want to challenge yourself to do it, give it a shot over time, train for it, and you could be one of those people too,
Yeah. Yeah. It's one of those things where, like I was saying earlier, like it takes time.
Mm-hmm.
And if you progressively overload appropriately,
exactly,
then sure, you can get to 50 mile.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I'll do it one day.
You should. And I think, like, as an athlete, this, like, with every sport, there's a level of personality in terms of like enjoying structure, enjoying routine,
Right.
enjoying like goals, like having consistent goals to reach in terms of physical fitness. And that might not be for everybody, but I think those just like core things are some other qualities that I see.
What's one misconception about ultra running that you want to clear up with the public? You got some beef with anyone, with anything? Let us know right now. This is your chance.
Oh man, that's a tough question. I feel like one, that it's all walking. I feel like there's some people who hear about it and they're like, oh, anybody can walk that, which that's number one. And number two, I just think a misconception in general is that, like we kind of discussed before, is that it takes this like, it can't be just anybody who does it. And I think a misconception I would want to tell everybody, because of how positively ultra running has impacted my life, is like, anybody can do it. If you train for it correctly, take care of your body, eat properly, fuel during your runs, you can really run any distance. So, but yeah, the walking thing is I see memes online all the time about like ultra running is just power hiking, and I'm like, hold up.
Oh, hold up here. I do some running during my races. Are there any bucket list races you wanna do that you wanna check off?
This one is definitely a bucket list one, and it would be the Cocodona 250. I would love to do that one day. It's definitely one that feels pretty uncomfortable to think about. As we know, it's over 250 miles.
Yeah.
But seeing, the finishers this year and just how amazing it was, that would be one that would be a dream race. I would love to be able to train for that one day in the next few years and do that, but it feels pretty insane.
Where is that?
That one's in Arizona.
Okay. Oh, that one just finished?
I think it's usually in May.
In May, okay. Oh, I'm thinking of what's the one they just did? It was like the
Hmm.
Badlands 100 or something like that. That looked rough.
Yeah. And those summer races are just brutal, like the heat, you're
Yeah.
accounting for so much other adversity that you have to face than just like a fall race in Ohio or just like a summer race in Ohio. When you're out in running in the deserts and things like that, it's pretty just mind blowing.
Yeah, that takes a lot of
Yes.
training. That's all I can
Yeah.
say. A lot of specific training in that dry
Hmm.
heat. With these distances, it's not uncommon for runners and participants to drop out at certain mileage. Are there any races, any training injuries or setbacks that you've had that have really taught you about your own
Hmm.
resiliency?
I think I've personally at this point in my like ultra running, I haven't had to drop from a race, but I do think that I respect anybody who drops from a race. I think
Hmm.
that that's really respect. Like I have so much respect for those individuals because that's not an easy decision, and it's so much better to
Yeah.
drop from a race, minimize your injury risk than potentially just like getting an injury that could take months to recover from. Um, but yeah,
Right.
I've been lucky in that regard that I haven't had to do that yet, and haven't faced any injuries of
Hmm.
that have set me back. I have faced injuries in my running career in general, like back in my cross country days that were kind of disheartening. And any athlete who's had an injury, as you know, it's very just like it
Yeah.
really sucks. And so I think having the strength to step back when you need to is really admirable and something I strive to do in my training. If I need an extra rest day, I take an extra rest day. It's not worth jeopardizing my mental or physical health to get a couple extra miles in. And so while I haven't stopped a race, I've taken a week off of training, during while prepping
Yeah.
for a race, or life's happened and I've missed my key long run, which is not ideal before a race, which I'm not saying you should skip every long run out there, but sometimes there will be things out of your control that kind of just happen. And so I think just going with the flow and accepting that your body tells you what it needs in terms of rest. So,
Yeah. And stuff happens with weather, or we had a couple people that slipped on the trail and rolled an ankle, or one lady needed stitches in her hand. She kept
yeah.
going though. She finished the 50. And stuff happens, and it's really those overuse injuries that those can be nasty, man. Like tendinopathies, IT band syndrome, Achilles stuff, knee stuff, runner's knee. I mean, you can certainly push through that, and I would never tell someone to stop if they're in the mud and they're halfway through. But again, it's one of the mantras I use with my patients is the juice worth the squeeze?
Exactly.
If you're okay with being beat up for a couple months after and maybe reducing training and it affecting the rest of the training season, then go for it.
Hmm.
Who am I to say? Who am I to say no? And this is not even with runners. It's really with all my patients. When I worked with a very active population generally, and who am I to say to stop doing something? I think not to get on my soapbox, but if you go see anyone in healthcare and they tell you and you're injured, orthopedic injury, and they tell you to stop doing something, unless it's actually a severe health concern, you should probably find another
Yeah.
opinion, because there's ways of adjusting, reducing training load, whatever it needs to be. I've had runners switch. I'll be like, I think you need to take a couple weeks off, cycling, walking, hiking, swimming. Like, just pick one of those instead,
Yeah.
or get into strength training. So, get off my soapbox. But I think healthcare misses that a lot. Our system does not do a very good job of treating the
Yeah. And
person.
I think a lot of that,
And
like your expertise and empathy, comes from, just your background as an athlete and knowing
mhm,
that it, you're as a practitioner and what you do, it's not just about like treating this textbook case of whatever's going on. Like they're an
right,
individual, and for someone who is an athlete, taking away their main thing and not offering alternatives can really impact mental health and everything
Yeah.
else. So I love that approach, and that's why I've always respected what you do with your patients and athletes
Thank you.
and stuff. But yeah, it's definitely very difficult to navigate injuries.
Yeah, it's very psychological too, right? Like that's your
Hmm.
identity. Runners like to run, and runners are
Yep.
runners, and translate that to, any sport as, active adults or kids. So it can be tough, and I don't think it's our job in the wellness industry to tell people no unless it's actually necessary. And trust me, I have told people no
Yeah.
when it's actually a danger to themselves or whatnot, very long term issues potentially. So yeah, I think that's an area in at least in my field that hopefully as the years go we get
Yep.
better at that as a whole. Here's a fun question. What's the craziest thing you've seen on the trail?
Oh, I feel like because like I ran locally, and like I haven't really encountered like wildlife or anything of that
Yeah.
nature. But one crazy thing that I saw was at the Thunder Bunny in Athens. After I got lost, which is a whole nother story, I got humbled in
Oh
that
no.
regard. But there's usually never just like a house cat out there, or like obviously an outdoor cat. And this cat just crossed my
Yeah.
path and was like following me. And it was such a magical experience in that moment because it kind of just lifted my spirits. And I was talking to the
Yeah.
director after. I was like, I saw the cutest cat out there. And he's like an Athens guy, and he's run those trails, I'm sure, thousands of times. And he's like, I've never seen a cat out there. So that felt like a cool experience.
Cool. Did it follow you around for a while?
For a little chunk of time, it kind of like came up to me and like
Yeah.
let me pet it. But
One.
unfortunately, I was hoping it would kind of run by my side. But no.
Yeah. It wanted your
Yep.
gummies, wanted your gel. That's fun. That's fun. What was that movie out recently where it was a Mark Wahlberg movie. They did the run and that dog followed him the whole time.
Oh
I
my
never
gosh,
watched that movie.
I haven't even heard of that.
Yeah, they were doing it was overseas somewhere. It's a true story, and this endurance team. I think they got lost actually, and this homeless dog followed them through and like
Oh my
navigated them
goodness,
through some of the jungle and stuff. Um, looks like a
I'll
great
have to check it
movie.
out.
Forget what it's called. Do you think you're gonna keep running 20 years from now? Is that the
I
goal?
sure hope. I see, at these races, and I'm sure you've seen, working the aid stations and stuff. There's people of
Hmm.
all ages, people in their 80s.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
it's crazy. It's I love to see it.
yeah, and I think,
I love to see it.
yeah, I would love to be running 20, 40, 60 years from now, hopefully. 60 would be pushing it because I'd be hitting close to 90. But, I think that just ultra running and other sports and things like that often remind me like age is not a barrier, and like you can
Hmm.
train, anybody's capable of it. So I would love to be one of those badasses out there still doing it
A-
in
a-
my older years.
Absolutely, absolutely. In my opinion, and people may differ, but I don't think there's a bad form of exercise. I think there is inadequate training and exercise that your body is not ready
Hmm.
for. And that's when we get into like injury risk, right? You're just kind of tipping the scale the wrong
Yep.
direction. Um, but yeah, I don't think there needs to be an age limit on strength training, on endurance training. I love when I see videos of like the 80-year-old grandma
Agreed.
deadlifting, 200 pounds.
Yeah, at the end of the day, it's
Really
just
fun to
managing
really fun to see.
stimulus. You see people on social media, they're like, I'm just going to send it. And they go do a marathon with no training. And, like, yeah, you're going to get injured.
Yeah,
But as long as you're managing load, recovery, and all of that stimulus, you can successfully do it really at any age.
yeah, I agree. If there's anyone listening that maybe they're a recreational runner, maybe they're not a runner, but are interested in getting into it more, and they see these like 50, 100, 200, 250 mile races, what would be some advice to give to someone that maybe that's a goal, or maybe they just want to do a local
Yeah.
5K, but they want to get into the sport?
Yeah, I would say, going back to the last point, starting incremental, making sure you're allotting the adequate time to train, and that'll make you feel good. If you're rushing into a 50 miler, your training's going to be rushed, your body's not going to recover, and you're going to be pretty unhappy along the way. So really just taking it step by step and being patient, because it is hard, as you know,
Yeah,
like it's hard to
for
not
sure.
want the reward right away, but those miles that you put in before race day are what really shape you. You learn so much
Mhm.
over those times. And another tip that I have is I'm somebody who over the years, and everyone who knows me knows this, is like it's very hard not to live in the black and white. It's like I want to have a routine. I want to have my training perfect. But one thing that has helped me, I think, level up and be a better runner than I even was when I hit my fastest times in high school, because I've recently beat those times and I'm now faster than I was, is being more fluid and accepting that, like,
Yeah,
you can have, I don't care how perfect your training is, if you don't have the skill
right.
set to adapt when things go wrong, you're really hindering yourself as an athlete, because when you're getting into the 50-mile races, when any ultra distance really, and you're out there for those extended periods of time, you could plan for, the perfect day. And then as we saw at Burning River,
Mhm.
it's storming all day and the trails are muddy.
Right.
And, if you can't really adapt and flow with that or prepare for the unexpected, it's going to be pretty difficult. So I would say, my biggest tip, and what if I could go back in time and tell myself as a newer runner, is be more fluid. It'll give you such a stronger skill set to be a good runner and to prepare for the unexpected, rather than feeling like everything needs to be perfect.
Yeah, training does not need to be perfect. Imperfect good habits are better than no good
Exactly.
habits. I know that sounds stupid, but I tell that to maybe patients that are trying to get back into more of a fit
Hmm.
lifestyle, and I'll say, look, you're not going to go to Planet Fitness 7 days a week. Start with 2 days a
Hmm.
week and maybe one walk a week around the block or something. That's going to be better than just trying to go gung ho
Yes.
into it. I think setting, like you're saying, like realistic, achievable
Hmm.
goals at first. And if this is an area that you're interested in and you're nervous about it and you don't really know what you're doing, find a running specialist. You can work with me. There's multiple running coaches throughout Cleveland. Online, you can find some great ones. Find a friend that's in a running club. Go to a running
Hmm.
club. Talk to runners. And it's a very, very helpful
Yes.
community. Very welcoming to beginners as
Yeah, and
well.
I think, like, a run club or a run group, there's Facebook groups for trail runners, things like that. You can gain so much valuable knowledge from other
Yeah.
runners, even if you've ran thousands of races. Like I ran a lot of races. I'm not saying I'm the most experienced runner out there, but there are things that I thought I knew, but then I heard somebody else's idea on it. I'm like, wait, that's a great idea to do on race day. And another
Right.
tip that I would have for anyone getting into it, on top of the things I mentioned, would be, train at times you hate if you can. If you love running in the morning and you're going to be doing an ultra marathon, you got to run in the evening, because you're going to be running in the evening.
Yeah, that's
And run
true.
at nighttime with, obviously, safely, get your lights, things like that, practice. Because
Yeah.
not only does it prepare you for those moments, but also it helps your digestive system. The biggest thing we hear with runners who do long distance is like, it's hard on your stomach or they can't fuel, but you need
Mhm.
to. When you're hitting these distances, like, it's a non-negotiable. So training at times that aren't ideal really help you train eating around those windows and the weather changes and the energy levels. So that would be my other tip too.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't even think of that. That's a
Yeah,
good point.
nothing.
Got to train all you got to train all day because you're going to be
Yeah,
running all
nothing
day.
worse than hitting a
Good
run at
point.
a time you don't like, and you're like, it's for the sake of the race.
Right. Any events coming up that you want to discuss or not? Either
Yeah,
way, you don't want to jinx it.
yeah. I mean, next weekend, so a week from tomorrow, I'm attempting the East Fork 100K. And so
Mm,
that one will be down near Cincinnati, and it's going to be
awesome.
out of my comfort zone. And there's a river crossing a couple times.
Okay.
So they recently posted on their page that it is waist deep on a 5'8" individual. So anyone who's listening, you know this. but I'm
You're gonna
5'1".
be swimming. You're gonna
Yeah.
be swimming.
So, I do have like a crew that'll be there. That'll be my first time having a crew at an ultra. And
Okay.
I'm trying to prepare with socks and shoe change if I need. But yeah, so it's a 50K loop. I'm going to attempt the 100K. And if not, I'll at least run a 50K. So it'll still be cool.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Well, I wish you the best of luck. That sounds like a really fun event.
thank you.
Yeah, thank you for your time today. Hopefully, if anyone is newer to running or experienced running, they picked up a couple tips today that might help. You can always reach out to me, or I'm sure reach out to you if needed. Any questions? But good luck with the rest of your training. I'm getting back into it myself. I've done a couple solo, just done myself 5K, so I'm getting there. The old knee is a little less creaky this
There we
month, so
go.
I avoided surgery, so
That's a
that's
huge win.
huge. But it's just a slow
Yeah.
process. Hoping to do my goal. I'm gonna put it in the existence is the Cleveland half in the spring next spring. So it'd be fun to maybe get a squad together and roll
Yeah,
that one
depending
out.
on the
But
date, I would
we'll
join.
see.
But yeah, that's one
Yeah,
tip for
we'll
everyone listening. Put those goals out into the universe. Tell
yeah
people.
yeah. I'm throwing it out there. So if the rehab goes as planned,
There
we'll
we go.
see.
But yeah, I'll definitely join you. And I thank you for your time today and having me. And yeah, like Dr. Nick said, if anyone's listening to this and has any questions, feel free to shoot me a message and I can give you some help.
All right, Kristen. Thank you so
Thank you.
much. Thanks for listening, everybody. Everyone have a good weekend.
Bye.
Bye bye.